I'm Una, you're very welcome to my channel. I've been making a lot of cards with geometric patterns recently, and I'll link to some more below this video. Today I'm making 3. They're very similar in design, but I make them differently with a die, with a paper trimmer, and with an acrylic block and a stamping tool. Here I'm preparing the panel and I need 8 lines. I'm using the Neenah wreath builder to help me mark out the lines, but later I'll show that I do this on my glass mat. This is just handy, it was in my stamping tool. And I need radial lines to apply my square tiles to the card panel. I'm using these packs of coloured card. There are 3 shades in each pack and I'm using them all. And for one of the cards I add some extras. These are the sets I'm using, the colour combos from Waffle flour. And I'm using these little square dies from the die set to create the first card. So I'm using my hand cranked little die cutting machine there. Very handy desktop machine. Now I'm taping down because you saw that it shifted the first time. And I'm running 2 pieces through at the same time now, and this really speeded up the process when I discovered I could do that. So this is how I lay the tiles out on the panel. I lay them diagonally across the radial lines. And you saw that I laid myself a track of glue. Now this wasn't the best way to do it. I was getting a little glue oozing out at the tips, and I'll show you in just a moment how I sorted that. Now I'm sure you can feel my smugness coming off the video at this stage, and I was really liking the way that it was going, and then wrong colour, take it off. I decided to leave this in just to let you see that you can always put mistakes right. But yeah, I was more careful after this. So I continued like that. I'll speed up the video now and just let you see how I ended up applying the glue. Can you see there? I was putting a blob down and I was sort of deciding where the center of the little square tile might be and using that to adhere down the little pieces. And it went very fast. And then for the last 4 lines, I decided not to repeat any of the colours I had already done, but to bring 4 that I thought made a nice transition back to the red. A purple, a lavender, a pink, and then a darker pink. Like I say, nice transition back to the red. So that was looking nice. I loved the way that the centre formed that little fan. So I snipped off the pieces from the edge carefully, and the panel was ready. I was really pleased with it. For a sentiment, I decided to go with this word smile. Well, it smiles, and I snipped it and turned it into smile. And there's a shadow for the word smile in this set. So I just very carefully drew a line, and I'm showing how when you're using these precision scissors, you turn the paper, not the scissors, and you get a wonderfully curved edge. Now I left that in because this doesn't always work for me, but it worked wonderfully this time. And I put the tiddle on the eye, and that's ready. So, oh, this is the Pinkfresh set. Wonderful. Oh, I love it. And suitable for so many occasions. I applied the panel I matted it on a piece of card, a matching piece of card from the set. Adhered it down. Decided to put the smile in the bottom right hand corner. And yeah, I was really pleased with that. So on to card number 2. And this time I'm using a paper trimmer to cut my squares. So I'm using the line on the trimmer base as a guide. And then, like before, I discovered I could do 2 pieces together, and this really speeded up the process. So lining them up carefully, pulling the blade, and I've got 2 pieces at a time. So I'll just show you here how I cut the squares. I lined the piece up against the 1 centimeter mark, and I discovered that to pull the blade down rather than to push it up gave me a cleaner cut. So when all my pieces were ready, I cut my card panel on the paper trimmer, and I'm lining it up with the 4-inch mark on the arm that pulls out there on the left. This is a Fisker's trimmer. I haven't used it for ages. I should take it out more. Now I'm using the squares on the glass mat to guide me to get those lines. There was a 5 square on each quadrant. Each quadrant measured 5 squares on my mat, so I was able to give myself pencil marks at the 2.5 square mark so that I'd know where to draw the lines. And at this stage I decided to just repeat the red, yellow, green, blue pattern the whole way around. And at the end I decided to snip that piece in the centre. I just thought it looked nicer not to have the full square panel popped up on that fan in the centre. For a sentiment I use this Mama Elephant set Occasional Labels, and I ink it up with VersaFine ink, which I find is the very best ink for these labels. And I ink it up twice to make sure I get a crisp image, and then I decide to clear heat emboss it, more to prevent myself smudging it than anything else. I could just have let it dry or used a heat tool to dry it. And here I'm using a handle on the label to help me hold it in my guillotine to cut it. Got that tip from Jennifer Maguire, and it's a super tip. Just use repositionable tape. I decide to mat this one on black. So I take it to my guillotine to trim it off. You see all the fine pieces I was able to cut off there with my guillotine. A very important tool, a really precise trimmer. So I eyeball it, place it on the card, apply the sentiment, and I did finish this up with a gem in the centre. You'll see it later. For the third card, I took out my little acrylic block and the stamp from the colour combo set. I've used this stamp before in videos I'll link below. And then I just cut them out, fussy cut them out. I needed a second set, and this time I used my stamping tool. And again, this technique I used in another video, and I link to it down below. You just move up along the stamping tool 2 squares at a time. It's a very easy, efficient way to stamp. In case you haven't seen this before, I'm showing how I created a shadow for this Hugs word. The one in the Pinkfresh set was too large. So that's a really easy way to create a shadow for a word. So this is how I finished the card. I applied a little gem from Little Things from Lucy's Cards, an iridescent one, and some embellishments that I create on packaging. They look like enamel dots. And why did you apply those, Una? To hide a blemish. I got glue on one of the little pieces behind that yellow one there. Shh, don't tell anybody. Nobody will ever know. So those are the cards for today. I was really pleased with the way they all turned out. So you don't have to have dies. You can do it on a paper trimmer, or you can just use your stamp and inks to create the squares to make these cards. I like that one. Which one do you prefer? I was delighted I chose black for that one. Some more videos on screen now that you might like to watch. I would love if you would subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. Would you give this video a thumbs up? That's really important for the success of my channel. Leave me a comment down below. All the best for now. Bye. Take care.